Chaliye ji, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we're going to start off with lecture number 19, but before we head on to lecture number 19, let's give a quick recap to what we did in the previous lecture. We started off with chapter number 11. It was about pricing strategies. We started off with new product development strategies. The first two strategies, the two strategies that we did for new product development were market skimming and price penetration. So what happens in skimming prices? You set the prices really high or in such a way that you skim off the profit initially, right? So the idea is to get maximum profit at the introduction stage so that you get maximum revenue before the competition kicks in. The next type of new product strategy was price penetration strategy, whereby you reduce the prices of your product, you enter the market with low prices as compared to your competitors so as to gain market share. And this happens when there's a lot of competition in the market and your product is not that innovative. So these were two very basic types of new product strategies. Then we talked about product mix pricing strategies. We talked about product line pricing, optional product pricing, captive product pricing, byproduct pricing, and product bundle pricing. What is product line pricing? Product line pricing takes into account cost differences between the products. In the product line, it takes into account customer evaluation of the features, and it takes into account competitor prices. So it takes into account three things. The first thing is competitor prices. The second thing is consumer evaluation, and then the last thing was the basic cost difference that exists in between the products. Then we talked about optional product pricing, in which it takes into account optional or accessory products along with the main product. So, and we talked about how you can have a fully loaded version of the car and you could have a stripped down model of the car, both priced very differently. Then we talked about captive product pricing. That involves products that must be used with the main product. We took the example of glucometers, how glucometer device needs to have its strips to make it useful. You cannot use a razor without the blade, again captive product pricing. You cannot use the printer without the cartridge, again a captive product pricing. Then we talked about how captive product pricing applies to services. It was about two-part pricing. So there's a fixed fee and then there's a variable usage fee. And we took the example of PTCL, how if you do not use your telephone, still you would get a line rent. That line rent is your fixed fee, and the amount of calls or the number of calls that you make, that would be your variable fee. Then we talked about byproduct pricing. Byproducts are those products that are incidental products. You do not intend on making those products, but they end up being created as a result of main product being produced. So we took the example of molasses, which is a byproduct in making refined sugar, and how it could be used in making different other products. So producer will seek little or no profit other than the cost to cover the storage and delivery. So what companies do is they usually do not tend to process the byproduct further. They just want to make sure that they cover the cost of disposing of the byproduct. By disposal, I mean selling it to somebody else or storing the byproduct, right? So that's the main idea of byproduct pricing. Then we talked about product bundle pricing, which essentially talks about bringing in 2 to 3 or more products together and pricing them at a reduced price. Then we talked about price adjustment strategies. The first strategy was discount and allowance pricing. In discounts and what happens in discounts? You slash the prices, you reduce the prices of the product. We talked about quantity discounts. We talked about functional, seasonal, and cash discount. Quantity discount was when you buy the product in bulk, the overall price of the product per unit reduces. On the other hand, what was functional discount? Functional discount was a discount that was given by manufacturer to the retailer or the member of the trade channels as a result of their performing a function for them. Then the next one was seasonal discount, discount that is available on buying a product off season. That is a seasonal discount. And the next one is cash discount, a discount that is given, a deduction granted to buyers for paying their bills within a specified period of time. We took the example of 2 by 10 net 30, which is if you pay the total amount within 10 days, you get 2% off the total bill. And you have to make the full payment within 30 days. Then we talked about allowance. Allowance is the promotional money paid by the manufacturer to the retailer in return for the agreement to feature the manufacturer's product in some way. We took the example of how trade allowances, and the recent example for trade allowances was the Ramadan replacement scheme of Master Celeste. Then we talked about promotional allowances. Promotional allowances are the payments or the price reductions to reward dealer for participating in advertising or sales support program. And lastly, we discussed segmented pricing, whereby the company sells a product at 2 or more prices, even though the difference in the cost is not that much. Right? So you have customer segment pricing, whereby you charge different customer different prices. We took the example of museums, how senior citizens are charged a different price for the ticket than the ordinary citizen. So this is customer segment pricing, whereby each segment gets a different price. Then we talked about product form pricing. What happens in product form pricing? There are different forms of product, and each form of product is priced differently, although the cost difference is not that much. So we calculated the per liter cost for Nestle 1.5 Nestle Pure Life, and we realized that for Nestle 1.5 liter we end up paying around 38-33 rupees per liter, and in Nestle Pure Life 19 liter bottle the amount reduces to around 8-9 rupees, right? But the water remains the same, the quality of the water remains the same within both the denominations. So with each denomination the per liter price reduces. Then we talked about location pricing, how with changing location you have different prices. So in theaters usually the front seats are generally cheaper and the middle seats are priced higher. So that is as per location of the seating. Then we talked about time pricing. Time pricing is the price varies by the season, by the month, even the hour, right? So when the price changes by the hour, that is time pricing. Then we talked about how segmented pricing could be effective. The first way in which it could be effective is that the market must be segmentable. You cannot choose a market that cannot be segmented. You do not have the information to segment the market. Secondly, there must be varying degrees of demand for each segment. So if the two segments have the same degree of demand, that means they're not separate segments as such. Then watching the market cannot exceed the extra revenue obtained from the price difference. Obviously you need to see the cost benefit analysis of doing the segmentation, and the segmentation must be legal. Then coming down to today's topic, that is price adjustment strategies, and firstly we're going to talk about psychological pricing. Now talking about psychological pricing. Now pricing is not just a matter of numbers, it's not just a matter of economics, but it has a lot to say about your product, right? It defines the quality of the product for many of us, right? So quality is the price is synonymous with the quality for many of the consumers, right? So you need to price the product accordingly. You need to not only see the economic aspect of pricing, but the psychological aspect of pricing at the very same time as well. So that is psychological pricing. Now according to research, digits have symbolic and visual qualities, and there's a separate study that is called numerology that takes into account the effects of these numbers. Numerology is based on the belief that there is a divine and mystical relationship between a number and its symbolism. So you go up the internet today and have a look at what your date of birth signifies. They would have exact details of what it would signify according to numerology. So it is, a proper study that is being done to understand the symbolism of each number. So that is the kind of effect that numbers have on our thinking and on our purchase behavior. Most of the products, if you see, they are priced, like if you see here, it is 29.99. That is almost 30. But it's priced 29.99. That is 1 digit less, right? 1 digit less. That means there's only 1 paisa difference, let's say. Does that 1 paisa difference, creates, difference?
Yes.
How does it create difference?
For example, if I have to pay like 100 rupees for juice or 99.99, then I would think 99.99 is like in 10, so I would buy.
Right. So your reference point changes with the digit. So if it's 29.99, that means that your reference point would be 20s, and it would somehow appear cheaper than something that is priced at rupees 30 because the range of number changes. So that is psychological pricing. Your reference point changes with the pricing that has been done. Same goes for the numbers that you choose. So if it's a number 8, it is supposed to be a more soothing number, right, as per psychology. But if you take number 7, it has a more jarring effect, right? It is more, it has a more striking effect, more disturbing effect. That's why if you ask somebody to choose a number in their mind, they usually tend to choose even numbers because they have a more soothing effect, right? So that's the sort of effect that we study in pricing as well. So that is psychological pricing. Talking about reference prices. Reference prices are the prices that buyers carry in their minds and refer to when looking at a product. Now that is also important when you're trying to price your product, because reference price is the price that your product price would be compared to. Now what could be the reference for reference pricing? There could be noting current prices, what are the different prices of current products and how your product is priced. Then remembering the past prices, how the price changes have occurred, that could also be a reference price. Then assessing the buying situation, a company could display its product next to more expensive ones. So that is also a reference point. So let's say if your product is a very average product, but it's placed in a shelf which carries very expensive product, it would be seen in accordance with those products. And if you price it higher, then people might be willing to pay the higher price because the reference point is the high-end products. So since it has been placed in high-end products, people would assume it as high-end and end up paying the high price. So that is how reference to which the product price is compared affects its price. Questions so far? Then promotional pricing. Promotional pricing is when prices are temporarily priced below the list price or cost to increase demand. So promotional price is a temporary price change that you make in order to create urgency, in order to increase the demand of your product. Now how would you do that? There could be loss leaders. Supermarket departments so often drop the prices of well-known brands to get the extra footfall, right? How do you do that? You reduce the price, people get tempted to buy the products and they walk in your stores, they not only buy that product but they look into other products and they end up buying those products as well. So that is loss leader pricing, whereby you reduce prices of well-known brands. The second one is special event pricing, that is done to attract more people in certain seasons. So you have Christmas sales, that is a special event pricing. Then you have Eid sales, you have Mother's Day sales that was just here a week ago. So that is all special event pricing. Then you have cash rebates. What is a cash rebate? What's a cash rebate? Cash rebate is an amount that is given by the manufacturer to the customer. That is a cash rebate. So cash rebate, our companies offer cash rebates to encourage purchase of manufactured products within a specified period of time. So if you go to Honda, buy Honda, then the Honda company might give you a cash rebate of, let's say, rupees 50,000. So upon the purchase of the product, you would get some amount back from the manufacturer. That is a cash rebate, and that is again a promotional pricing technique. Sorry? Sale is a different concept. Sale is a reduction in price, right? Cash rebate is not a reduction in price. You'll pay the full price, but you'll get some amount back. That is a cash rebate. Then low interest pricing. What happens in low interest pricing? The company can offer low interest financing, right? It is very visible in banks, right? You can get cheaper loans on let's say car financing, home financing. So they reduce the financing interest rate so as to encourage people to get more loans. And when they get more loans, what would happen? What is the effect of lowering the investment rate? Interest rate, sorry. What happens when you lower the interest rate? What happens? Demand for loans increase. What does that does? Decreases the value of money. Okay. Anybody else? What happens is when you lower the interest rate, people do not tend to keep their money in the banks. Right? Why don't they want to keep the money in the banks? Because there's no incentive on keeping the money in the banks, right? They would not earn their interest income that much. So what they do is they take out the money and put it in the system and invest it somewhere. So if you want to increase the investment level in a country, you reduce the interest rate, as a result of which people are encouraged to take out the money from the bank and invest it somewhere, right? So business activity increases as a result of you lowering the interest rate. So what would happen in this situation? You lower the interest rate, people would be encouraged to buy the loan, and as a result of which there would be increase in the number of houses being bought, there would be increase in number of cars being bought, there would be increase in XYZ for which the loan is being taken. So overall business activity would increase as a result. The longer payment terms. How would that affect? What do we mean by that? Longer payment terms mean the duration within which you need to pay your loan, right? So that means if you have to pay rupees 1 lakh loan within a year, that means for every month your payment would be somewhere around 9,000, right? So, and if you have to pay the same amount of money, but you have to pay it in, let's say, next 3 years, the amount would drastically reduce that you need to pay every month. That would encourage a lot of consumers to buy the loan, because they cannot take out a sizable portion of their income for, servicing their loan, right? So that would again encourage people taking loans when the longer payment terms are available. Then warranties and service contracts also are a good way to encourage or promote your product in the market. Companies can promote sales by adding free or low cost warranty or service contract. Now, risk of promotional strategies. If you use the promotional strategies a lot, people do not end up buying the product at full price. I think that's my belief, that's what has happened to Gul Ahmed. In 365 days a year, it is on sale for, let's say, 250 days a year, Yes? How many of you agree? You don't buy Gul Ahmed? You used to? Sally. So that is what happens. That's what happens if you keep the prices or if you keep on doing the promotional pricing a lot. People tend to think that you would go on a promotional price and they never end up buying your product at full price. So that is creating deal-prone customers who would only buy your product if there is a deal available. If there's no deal, there would be no purchase. So that's one drawback of having promotional pricing. Then it also creates price wars. If you're reducing the prices, again, competitor would have to respond. They would reduce the prices. And the cycle would go on. So it could create price wars. And talking about geographical pricing is used for customers in different parts of the country or the world. How do you price the product with customers who are residing in different parts of the world and different parts of the country? There are different ways in which you could do that. The first one could be FOB or free on-board pricing. What happens in free on-board pricing? You place the product or you give the product to the courier or the company who would be forwarding your shipment, and the customer would pay the price of the product and the cost that the shipment, the cost of the shipment, right? So this happens for many companies, right? This is a method that is used by many companies. So FOB means that the goods are delivered to the carrier and the title and responsibility passes to the customer to pay the freight charges. So let's say the price of the product was 5,000. Somebody in Islamabad ordered and they got the product for 5,100. Somebody in Karachi ordered the same product and they got the product for 6,000. Now 1,000 for the shipping fee. So that is FOB, free on board, right? So you pay the freight charges yourself, and it is considered one of the fairest way to price the product. Then uniform delivery pricing means that the company charges the same price plus freight to all customers regardless of location, right? So what happens is they calculate the average shipment price and they embed the price in their product's price. And everybody, whether you live in Karachi, whether you live in Peshawar, whether you live in Islamabad, everybody would get the same uniform price of the product when you order the product, right? So that is uniform delivery pricing. Another way could be zone pricing, in which you create zones. So let's say the north zone would pay the same price no matter where from north zone you place the order, and the south zone would get a different price, and everybody that would fall under that particular zone would end up paying the same price. So this is again one of the methods to price your product. Then basing point pricing. In this basing point pricing, you take a central city, a base city, and from there you calculate the freight, right? So it might not be your production unit, it might be your production, but usually it's the center of the country or region, and from there you calculate the freight charges, and the customer ends up paying the freight. The next one is freight absorption pricing. Means that the seller absorbs all or part of the actual freight charge as an incentive to attract business in competitive market. Now what happens in this one? The company would assume a lot of shipping charges themselves, right? So how would that help the company? It would help the company gain more business. It would help the company or the customers more encouraged to buy from the company because the product would be cheaper, right? So it would increase the business of the company. So these are 5 different methods in which you could price the product in different through geographical pricing, the freight. The next one is dynamic pricing. Now, in dynamic pricing, what happens is that prices are adjusted continually to meet the characteristics and needs of individual customers and situation. So the prices keep on changing in dynamic pricing. This was true for airlines. Now what used to happen initially was that the buyer and the seller used to negotiate the prices. We're talking about 18th, 19th century. The buyers and sellers used to negotiate the prices. Let's say for a bag of wheat, they used to negotiate how much would you give and how much am I willing to take, right? So that was the negotiation that was done to get to a price level. This was in the historical time. But when the things changed and there was mass production and there was, giant retailers came into place, we moved from dynamic pricing to fixed pricing, right? And many of the companies fixed their price and the buyers could not negotiate the price with the sellers. So you cannot go to a supermarket and ask for a different price for Surf Excel. You would get it on a fixed price because it's a mass product. But things have again started to change. From dynamic pricing to fixed pricing, we are now moving, or many of the companies are moving again to fluid pricing or dynamic pricing. Now this holds true for airline industries. We took the example in the previous lecture as well how prices change every now and then for a particular flight, right? So if you book the ticket half an hour before the flight, you get a very cheap rate, right? Very inexpensive ticket. If you book the ticket in, let's say, Christmas or during the Eid season, you might not end up getting the ticket. If you're lucky enough, the ticket prices would be very high. So if you have to travel from Toronto to, let's say, Islamabad, taking a flight of PIA, the usual price is around $1,200, $1,300. But in Christmas, the price is around $2,500, which is almost the double price. So this is how price changes with changing season, with changing demand, with changing situation. And talking about international pricing. Now international pricing is when prices are set in a specific country based on country specific factors. So you need to take into account what country are you working into before you price the product, because every country has a different per capita income, has different economic conditions that might result in difference in the purchasing power of the people, firstly. Secondly, the competitive conditions may be different. The laws, rules and regulations may be different. So for instance, in a country like Pakistan, if you're coming in the telecom sector, it is highly competitive. So if you come with really high prices that you're offering, let's say in Europe or in Canada, the things would not work out for you. You need to reduce your prices, come down to the prices of that match your competitor. So you need to see the competitive environment of the country that you're working in before you price the product. Then laws and regulations again govern a lot in your pricing. Then infrastructure also affects the pricing of the product. Then company's marketing objective also affect the pricing of the product. So if your marketing objective is this amount, let's say 10,000 units to be sold within a month, that means you need to price your product accordingly. If your sales target is for the same product is 10 lakh units, your price needs to be accordingly. So your marketing objective also affects your pricing. Now talking about international pricing, a Big Mac deal in USA is around rupees 850 Pakistani rupee. How much is it in Pakistan? Big Mac meal. It's around 650, 670, around that. How much is the difference? Around 200. So around 200 is the difference that is there, because the market is different, the purchasing power of the people is different. Therefore, the same meal that is offered in USA costs around rupees 850, and the same meal offered in Pakistan costs less, that is around 650, right? But it's not true for every situation, every company. You don't need to adjust your prices for every type of product. For instance, Boeing sells the product for the uniform price around the world. So if it sells Boeing to PIA, if it sells Boeing to Air Canada, if it sells Boeing to British Airways, the price would be same, right? So it depends upon your product if you want to change the price going international or not, right? So again, another example could be a pair of jeans of Levi's. So $30 in Canada, $63 in Tokyo, and $88 in Paris. So see the amount difference, around $50 between Canada and Paris, right? Because the purchasing power is different, the trend, the social trends are different between Canada and Paris. How much does it cost in Pakistan? Pakistan. How much a pair of Levi's jeans costs in Pakistan? 15 to 20,000? No, original Levi's store. We're talking about original Levi's store. 1,000? Around 3,500, 4,000. This is the average cost, right? You can go up, you can buy a pair of jeans for 8,000, 12,000, but on average, you know, it is available for 3,500, 4,000 for a pair of jeans. How much is $88? 10, 12,000, right? And how much is 30? $30? So the Canadian prices and Pakistani prices are pretty comparable, but if you take into account Paris prices and Pakistani prices, they're not comparable at all. So you see, according to the geography, according to the place that the product is launched into, the same product has been priced differently. Now, price changes occur, and the price changes may be as a result of, the price change may be in the form of increase in price, or it may be in the form of decrease in price. So what happens when you cut the price? Why would you want to cut the price? There could be two basic reasons for why you would want to cut the price or reduce the price of your product. The first one is there's excess capacity of the product, and there is, or you want to get increased market share. So this is basically price penetration. You reduce the price of the product to enter deeply into the market, get a bigger market share. And what could increase the price of the product? What causes inflation? Well, the two types of inflation, basic two types. Yes, that is right, but we're talking about two types of inflation. Cost push and demand pull, very good. So cost push inflation is the type of inflation that happens as a result of the cost of production being increased. So that is a cost inflation. Your overall cost of producing the product has increased. The raw material prices have increased, as a result of which you have increased the price of the product. On the other hand, there could be demand pull. There's a lot of demand for your product, and you cannot meet that demand. How would you, cater to that? You would increase the price of the product. When the product price increases, as a result of which demand decreases. So that's one way of managing your demand. So that's exactly what happens in Ramzan. There's a lot of demand for fruit. Fruit gets expensive, right? So that is demand pull inflation. So that is what happens in price changes. So price cuts occur due to excess capacity and increased market share, and price increase from cost inflation, increased demand, and the ability or lack of supply. Now, how would a buyer respond to price changes? Now, if there's a price increase, that could mean two things to buy. Either they could think that the product is, you know, extremely popular, it's selling out like a hot cake, and that he should buy it too. That is one way of looking at things. The other way is that the buyer may think the company wants to make maximum money. They're price gougers. They want to, reap the maximum profit out of the market. So that's why they're increasing price. So one way is positive for the company, and the other way is completely negative for the company. So there are two ways in which buyer could react to price increases. On the other hand, price cuts could signify that there might be a new model that might be coming up. The current model or the current product is not selling that well. That's why the company is reducing the price. Or there might be quality issues with the product. That's why the company might be reducing the price. So this is generally the buyer's reaction towards price changes. Now, responding to price changes. How do you respond when your competitor changes the price? So if you see here, the first part here says, has competitor cut the price? If the answer is no, then hold current prices, right? So if you see here, has the competitor cut the price? If the answer is no, hold current price, continue to monitor competitors' prices. You don't need to change your prices unless and until competitor has changed the prices. Then coming down to, will lower prices negatively if the answer is yes. Has the competitor changed the price? Yes. Will lower prices negatively affect our market share and profits? If the answer is no, hold on to the current price. You don't need to change if your market share does not change with the customer, with the competitor changing the price. If the competitor's price change might lead to alteration in your or reduction in your market share, it's a good idea to move on to the next step. That is, can and should effective action be taken? If the answer is yes, then you have these four options. Either you reduce the price and take it to a level of your competitor, or you could raise the perceived value of the product, right? How do you increase the perceived value of the product? We did a strategy for that in value-based pricing. What was that? Value addition pricing, right? So you add more value to the product, or you increase the perceived value through superior advertisement, through convincing your buyer that the price you are charging is actually right for the quality that you're delivering, right? So you need to convince the buyer that the price you're charging is fair and that they're getting good quality for the price that they're paying. The next option could be improve quality and increase price. So you improve the quality and increase price at the same time so as to deal with the competition. The last one is launch low price fighting brand. So if you cannot match, or your current brand image could be tarnished by the low price of the product or lowering the price of your current brand, then an alternate way could be that you launch a fighting brand. A brand of which you could reduce the price of, and which is targeted in such a way, or which is positioned in such a way that you could lower its prices in comparison to the competitor, and that will make you hold the market share. So this is a grid that shows you how you respond to price changes. Any questions in this? Right, public policy and pricing. Now you need to see public concern, you need to be aware of consumer well-being when it comes to pricing your product. The first element in this is price fixing. Seller must set prices without talking to competitors. So when you talk to your competitor and set the prices, this is against pure competition, right? And this is something that is discouraged by the governments, that is discouraged by the market itself, right? So the market rules and regulations, the governmental rules and regulations ask for free competition. And if you set the price by talking to your competitor, this is price fixation, and this is not a healthy activity for an economy. Then the next one is predatory pricing. What is predatory pricing? Okay. Predatory pricing is lowering your price to such an extent that your core aim is to drive the competition out of the market. So predatory pricing, main objective of predatory pricing is to drive the competition out of the market. How would you drive the competition out of the market? By reducing the prices to such an extent that your competitor cannot match your pricing, and as a result of which he would lose his market share to you and he would go out of business soon. So that is predatory pricing. Again, it is you need to protect the small sellers from the larger ones, so it is against the public policy. Then deceptive pricing. Deceptive pricing occurs when a seller states prices or price saving that mislead consumers. So misleading consumer is deceptive pricing. How would that take place? For instance, scanner fraud failure. You do not end up entering the changed prices in your scanners, as a result of which when you build the products, you build them fully, right? So if the product was rupees 5 and the price has been reduced to rupees 3, that 2 rupees reduction has not been entered into the system, and every time the cashier bills, would bill the product, the system would read it as rupees 5, and the customer would not end up getting the benefit. That is first way of deceptive pricing. The second way could be that you price the product in such a complex way that customer do not understand if there was a price benefit or not. There's so much components to a product, and they price the product in such a way that an average consumer is not wise enough to see if he really ended up being better off with that purchase or not. Another deceptive pricing way could be that you could increase the product's price and then lower the price. So let's say if a pair of shoes was let's say rupees 2,000, and you increase its price to rupees 3,000 and then put a sale on it for 33%, it would again come down to rupees 2,000, which was the actual price of the product. So this is again deceptive pricing. Many shops here locally, they have a sale board throughout the year, right? They are on sale 365 days a year. That is again deceptive pricing. So this is all about public policy and pricing, and with this we've come to the end of the chapter. If there's a question, we'll take it.